The security patch was scheduled for 7 o'clock, 30 minutes after my departure. Server updates always carried risk, especially with our patched infrastructure of bolted-together systems. In the old days, I would have stayed late, monitored everything, and been ready to jump in if the integrations hiccuped. But that was before my director told me to stick to my basic hours. So at 6:30 p.m. on that Thursday, I saved my work, closed my laptop, and walked out. I got to my car at 6:38 p.m., engine running, a country music station playing, and pulled out right on schedule. Somewhere behind me in server rooms I could not see, a countdown was ticking. $70 million in transactions were about to hit a system that was about to break. Banking clearance protocols that would freeze. Automated reconciliation that would stick mid-cycle. The kind of failure that makes executives sweat and starts countdown clocks on careers. And I was heading home to make chocolate chip cookies with my daughter Chloe. My name is Gavin Caldwell, and until about 4 weeks before that Thursday, I was the Senior Systems Integration Lead at Summit Financial Solutions in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was the person who made sure all our different software platforms talked to each other without starting a massive conflict. Payment systems, clearinghouses, client portals, internal databases. I was the translator, the mediator, and the firefighter. I had been with Summit for 8 years. I worked my way up from a junior analyst, learned every system, and became the go-to person when things broke. And things broke constantly because our company had grown fast, buying up smaller competitors like Pinnacle Systems, bolting their tech onto ours with custom code and hope. I did not mind. Actually, I loved it. Problem solving was my passion. The rush of finding a bug at 9 p.m. or seeing systems sync perfectly after rewriting an integration script was my jazz. But there was a heavy cost. I was working 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, answering messages at midnight, taking calls during Chloe's soccer games, and logging in on weekends. My wife Nora called my laptop my other spouse, and my son Oliver asked if I lived at the office. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. Still, I told myself it mattered, the company needed me. My director, Bradford Cole, always said so. "We do not know what we would do without you, Gavin," he would say, right before assigning me another urgent project. "You are irreplaceable." Funny how that word lost its meaning. 4 weeks before the crash, I had been at the office until almost midnight, untangling a mess in our transaction processing pipeline. Some engineer had pushed an update without testing it against our clearinghouse protocol, and suddenly thousands of transactions were erroring out. I caught it before it became a client-facing disaster, fixed the integration, documented what went wrong, and sent a detailed report to Bradford and the technology director. I got home after 1 a.m. Nora was asleep on the couch waiting up for me again. Oliver and Chloe were long in bed. I had missed dinner again, missed helping with homework again, missed bedtime stories again. The next morning, I dragged myself into the office at 8:30, running on 5 hours of sleep and cold brew. Bradford called me into his office at 11 a.m. Bradford was behind his desk, looking fresh and rested, scrolling through something on his monitor. "Close the door, Gavin," he said. I did, my stomach tightening. Something in his tone felt off. "Thanks for handling that situation last night." He started. "Crisis averted, as usual. No problem, but we really need to implement mandatory testing protocols before updates go live. This is the third time this quarter that right. He waved his hand. "I will bring that up in the next leadership meeting. But actually, that is not why I wanted to talk." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I have been reviewing department analytics, time tracking, productivity metrics, that sort of thing." "You have been logging a lot of overtime hours," Bradford continued. "Like a lot. 70-plus hour weeks for months now." "Well, yes, the workload has been intense since we acquired Pinnacle Systems. Their infrastructure integration alone required. Here is the thing." Bradford's expression shifted into his practiced corporate concern face. "Upper management is getting worried about burnout, work-life balance, and wellness. And frankly, your overtime is making the departmental budget look bad." I blinked. "Making the budget look bad." "Finance has been asking questions. Why does one specialist need so many extra hours? Are we understaffed? Should we hire another person? It is creating optics issues." Optics issues. I had fixed a crisis that could have cost us clients, running on fumes and midnight coffee. and his concern was optics. "So what are you saying?" I asked. "I am saying you need to manage your time better. Stick to your basic hours. 40 hours a week is what my salary covered. Whatever you cannot get done in that time frame, well, it will have to wait. Or delegate it. Delegate the work to whom? I am the only one who knows these integrations." Bradford shrugged. "Then prioritize. Work smarter, not harder. I have confidence you will figure it out." The dismissal was clear. I stood up. "This is effective immediately, Gavin," Bradford added. "No more overtime. We need to break this pattern." I nodded and left. I sat at my desk for 20 minutes, staring at my screen without seeing it. Stick to basic hours. No overtime. Work smarter. Easy to say when you were not the one keeping the digital infrastructure from collapsing. When I got home that evening, at a reasonable hour for once, Nora could tell something was wrong. We had been together since college, married for 15 years. She could read my moods like weather patterns. "What happened?" she asked while we cleaned up after dinner. Oliver and Chloe were upstairs arguing about whose turn it was to pick the movie for family night. I told her everything. The late night, the director's directive. "So, he wants you to do the same amount of work in less time," Nora said. "Basically, or let things fail, I guess." "Would things fail?" I thought about that. Yes, probably. The systems we manage are complex. They need monitoring, maintenance, quick responses when issues pop up. 40 hours a week is barely enough for routine stuff, let alone handling the integration projects I am supposed to be leading. Nora dried a plate slowly, thinking, "So, what are you going to do? What can I do? He is my director. You could talk to human resources." "And say what? My boss told me to stop working overtime?" "That is not exactly a violation. It is if the work still needs to get done. They will just say I need to manage my time better." Same corporate line. I scrubbed at a pot harder than necessary. I am just frustrated. I have given this company 8 years. I have saved them from disasters nobody else even suspected, and the thanks I get is being told I am a budget problem. Nora was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stuck with me. "Maybe it is time to give them exactly what they requested." I looked at my wife. "You heard me," she continued. "They want 40 hours? Give them 40 hours, not a minute more. Let us see how their systems hold up when you are not there to catch every falling knife." It felt dangerous, reckless, like stepping off a ledge. It also felt right. That night I made a decision. If Bradford wanted me to stick to basic hours, I would stick to them religiously. 8:30 to 6 p.m. with a lunch break, or whatever schedule made exactly 40 hours. 40 hours, not a second more. Whatever happened outside those hours was not my problem anymore. If the house caught fire after 6:30 p.m., someone else could grab the extinguisher. The first week was harder than I expected. Not the work itself, the guilt. Years of conditioning made me want to check my email at night, to log in when a notification came through at 7 p.m., to answer my phone when I was called on Saturday morning. But I did not. Nora was the wife who became my accountability partner. When my laptop called to me after dinner, she would remind me, "Basic hours only, remember?" When my phone buzzed with a work crisis on Sunday afternoon, she would say, "Not your problem right now." The cracks started showing by week 2. Small things at first. An integration script that needed updating did not get updated because the issue was reported at 6 p.m. A client portal slowdown that I would have caught and fixed overnight instead persisted until I addressed it the next morning after 3 clients had complained. A routine system check that I usually did on Sunday evenings to prep for Monday did not happen, and we started the week flying blind. Bradford noticed. Of course he noticed. "There have been some complaints," he mentioned during our weekly check-in. "Response times are slower, little issues becoming bigger ones." "I am handling everything during my scheduled hours," I replied calmly. "Like you asked." "Right, but maybe you could be more efficient. I do not know. Streamline your processes." "I have streamlined everything that can be streamlined. The work takes the time it takes." He frowned but did not push it. Not then. By week 3, the cracks were becoming gaps. An overnight batch process failed at 2 a.m., something that happened occasionally and that I had always caught and restarted remotely before anyone noticed. This time, it stayed failed until I arrived at 8:30 the next morning. That delay cascaded into our morning reconciliation processes, pushing everything back by hours. The technology director, Craig Fletcher, cornered me in the break room. "What is going on with you?" he asked. Not unfriendly, but clearly stressed. "You used to be on top of everything." "I am working my scheduled hours," I said, 40 per week like Bradford specified. Craig's expression shifted understanding. "Ah, he gave you the overtime speech. You have heard it before. He gives it to anyone whose hours make his departmental budget look bloated, then acts surprised when productivity drops." Craig grabbed his coffee and shook his head. "Good luck with that. Let's see how things go." The stage was set, and the tension was building. That Thursday started normally. I had meetings in the morning, worked on updating documentation for our new client onboarding system, and helped troubleshoot a minor protocol hiccup around lunchtime. Routine stuff. Around 3 p.m. I got a message from Craig Fletcher. "Heads up, we are pushing a security patch to the main transaction servers tonight around 7 p.m. Should be quick, just a reboot and update." In the old days, I would have stayed late to monitor that. Server updates, even routine ones, sometimes had unexpected effects on integrations. I would want to be there to make sure all the connections came back clean, that data flow resumed properly, and that nothing got stuck in the process. But 7 p.m. was not during my basic hours. I messaged back, "Okay, thanks for the notice." Craig replied, "You will be around if anything weird happens?" "I will be here until 6 p.m. or 6:30, depending on lunch," I wrote. "After that, I am off the clock." There was a pause, then got it. At 6:30 p.m., I saved my work, closed my laptop, and packed my bag. A few people were still at their desks, the usual mix of late workers and people avoiding their commutes. I walked past Bradford's office. He was on a call, laughing at something, looking relaxed. I got to my car at 6:38 p.m., started the engine, and pulled out. The patch deployment was scheduled for 7 p.m. I would be almost home by then. My phone started ringing at 6:51 p.m. Craig's name on the screen. I sent it to voicemail. It rang again, this time someone from the IT team. I did not recognize the number. Voicemail. Third call, 6:55 p.m., Bradford. I declined it and turned on music. A cheerful rock song felt appropriately on the nose. By the time I pulled into my driveway at 7:14 p.m., I had 26 missed calls and a barrage of messages that I could see lighting up my phone even though I had not opened the app. "Daddy." Chloe ran out to meet me, still in her school clothes, backpack bouncing. "Can we make those cookies tonight, the ones with the chocolate chips?" "Absolutely," I said and meant it. "Go wash your hands. We will start as soon as I change." Oliver was at the kitchen table, working on math homework with the focused frown he got from his mother. Nora was prepping vegetables for dinner, and the whole house smelled like garlic and olive oil. Normal, peaceful. This was what I had been missing during all those late nights at the office. My phone would not stop buzzing. Nora glanced at it. "Work? Yep. You going to answer?" "Nope," she grinned. "That is my guy." I changed into comfortable clothes, threw my phone on silent in my bedroom, and went back downstairs. Chloe had already gotten out the mixing bowls and was reading the recipe card with intense concentration. Oliver had moved on to science homework and was asking Nora to quiz him on the water cycle. We made cookies, double batch, because Oliver argued that if we were going to the effort, we might as well make enough to share with his class. The kitchen got messy with flour and laughter. Chloe insisted on hand mixing, even though her arms got tired and I had to help. Oliver stole chocolate chips directly from the bag when he thought I was not looking. This was what mattered. At 8:30 p.m., after the first batch came out of the oven and we were all stealing warm cookies, despite Nora's protests that we would ruin dinner, I finally checked my phone. I had 26 missed calls and 45 unread messages across all platforms. The most recent text was from Bradford, sent 4 minutes ago. "Gavin, call me immediately. Emergency." I ate another cookie and turned the phone back over. Nora raised an eyebrow. "Must be bad. Probably. You really not going to call back?" "It is past my basic hours," I said. "Whatever it is, it will still be there tomorrow morning." I could see her fighting back a smile. "You are ice cold. You know that. I am just following company policy." We had dinner, pasta with the vegetables Nora had prepped, salad and warm cookies for dessert, even though it absolutely ruined any pretense of nutritional balance. We watched a movie as a family, some animated thing about talking animals that Chloe picked. Oliver pretended it was too babyish for him, but laughed at all the jokes. My phone vibrated intermittently throughout the evening. I ignored it. At 10 p.m., after the kids were in bed, Nora and I sat on the back porch. The quiet night air was filled with the soft sound of crickets, and for the first time in months, I felt completely present in my own home, rather than half present and half waiting for the next digital crisis to pull me away. It was a wonderful feeling, and it made me realize how much of my life I had been throwing away for a budget report. I was glad I stood my ground. My time was mine, and no one else could dictate my presence after hours. At 10:15 p.m., I finally sat down and read through the messages. The security patch Craig's team deployed did not go smoothly. The servers came back up, but something in the update conflicted with one of my custom integration scripts, the one that managed real-time data synchronization between our transaction processing system and the banking clearinghouse network. Instead of transactions flowing smoothly through validation, processing, and clearance, they started piling up in a digital traffic jam. The system did not crash exactly. It just froze mid-process, caught in a loop it could not resolve. $70 million in transactions were stuck in limbo. If they did not resolve it before the overnight settlement cycle completed, there would be fees, regulatory complications, and potentially broken contracts with major financial institutions, and nobody could fix it except me. Craig's message at 7:47 p.m. read, "Gavin, critical situation with clearinghouse integration. Need you ASAP." Bradford wrote at 8:15 p.m., "Where is Gavin? Someone get him on the phone now." Craig wrote at 8:33 p.m., "Tried to roll back the patch, but it is not resolving the integration freeze. We need Gavin to look at his scripts." Bradford wrote at 8:51 p.m., "This is unacceptable. Why isn't he answering?" Someone from Human Resources, Audrey Keller, wrote at 9:04 p.m., "Hi Gavin, trying to reach you regarding urgent work. Call the office as soon as possible." Bradford wrote, "Gavin, call me immediately. Emergency." The voicemails were equally frantic. Craig sounded stressed but professional. Bradford went from controlled urgency to absolute panic, shouting, "Where the hell are you? We have $70 million in stuck transactions, and you are not answering your phone. Call me back now." Nora stopped wiping the counter. "Wow, he sounds pleasant. What are you going to do?" "I am going to go to bed," I said, taking another sip of tea. "I will address it tomorrow morning." "They are going to lose their minds," she replied. "A $70 million crisis sounds serious." "It is serious," I agreed. "Which is why they should have thought about that before telling me I was a budget problem for working the hours necessary to prevent exactly this kind of disaster." Nora came over and kissed the top of my head. "I am proud of you. They created this situation, not you." I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up at my normal time, had coffee with Nora, helped Chloe find her library book, reminded Oliver about his science quiz, left the house at 8 o'clock and arrived at the office at 8:27. The building was still standing. Whatever had happened, they had survived the night. I badged in through the front entrance and took the elevator to the fourth floor. The office was weirdly quiet. A few people glanced at me as I walked to my desk, expressions hard to read. I set down my bag, opened my laptop, and logged in. Before I could even check my email, Bradford appeared at my desk. He looked terrible. Rumpled shirt, tie loosened, hair disheveled, and dark circles under bloodshot eyes. The man had clearly been here all night. "My office," he said, voice flat. "Now." I followed him, heart beating faster despite my outward calm. He shut the door harder than necessary and turned to face me. "Where were you last night?" "At home. We had a catastrophic system failure. $70 million in transactions frozen. Every single person in the technology division was here until 3 o'clock in the morning trying to fix it, and you were at home." "I was off the clock," I said. "You told me to stick to basic hours, no overtime without pre-approval." His face flushed red. "This was an emergency. I understand that, but it happened at 7 p.m. outside my scheduled work hours. We called you, texted you, left messages. I saw them this morning." "This morning?" His voice went up an octave. "We needed you last night. Do you understand how bad this was? We nearly lost 3 major clients. The chief financial officer is furious. We might face regulatory fines." "That sounds stressful," I said calmly. "Were you able to resolve it?" "Barely. Craig and his team worked through the night, doing manual workarounds to push the transactions through. It was a nightmare. It should have taken you 20 minutes to fix." Probably, I agreed, but I was not here. Because you chose not to answer your phone during an emergency. Because it was outside my basic hours, and you specifically told me not to work overtime. Bradford stared at me. His jaw worked like he was chewing words he could not quite spit out. I wanted him to feel the weight of his own directive. I want you to understand something, I continued, and pulled a folded piece of paper from my pocket. After our conversation 4 weeks ago, I wanted to make sure I was clear on company policy regarding after-hours work expectations. I unfolded the paper. It was a printed email, the employee handbook section on overtime and after-hours availability. According to Summit Financial Solutions official policy, I read, salaried employees are not required to work beyond their scheduled hours, unless previously agreed upon in writing or unless after-hours availability is explicitly stated in their employment contract. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, specifically Title 29 of the United States Code, Section 207, employers must compensate employees for overtime hours. If the company misclassifies employees or demands off-the-clock labor to keep departmental budgets looking clean, it constitutes a clear violation of federal law. My employment contract does not mention after-hours availability, and you specifically told me not to work overtime. So when the emergency happened outside my scheduled hours, I was under no obligation to respond. His face went pale. I had made my point. The next morning after the storm, the rest of the day was surreal. Craig came by around 11:30 a.m. with coffee. That was pretty spectacular, he said, setting a latte on my desk. Whatever you said to Bradford, he has been in back-to-back calls with executives all morning. Word is they are having an emergency budget meeting. Huh, I said. Thanks for this. Thank you. Last night was hell, but honestly, it proved your point. They have been taking you for granted. I hope they approve your proposal. By lunchtime, I had cleaned up the integration issues that caused the freeze. It was 20 minutes of work, adjusting the script to account for the security patch changes. At 2 p.m., I got a meeting invite from Audrey Keller in Human Resources and Harvey Kensington, the Vice President of Operations. The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. today. At 3 p.m., I walked into the conference room. Audrey was there, professional and neutral. Harvey Kensington was a tall man in his early 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit, and Bradford looking like he still had not slept. Gavin, thanks for joining us, Harvey started. His voice was measured, diplomatic. We wanted to discuss last night's incident and talk about some operational concerns that have come to light. First, I want to acknowledge the seriousness of what happened. A system failure of that magnitude is unacceptable. I nodded. Second, it has come to our attention that there may have been some miscommunication regarding after-hours work expectations. He glanced at Bradford, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Can you walk me through your understanding of those expectations? I explained the last 8 years of unpaid overtime. The conversation with Bradford 4 weeks ago, my decision to comply with his directive, and the emergency that happened outside my scheduled hours. Harvey listened without interrupting. Audrey took notes. When I finished, Harvey said, and you have a proposal for addressing this. I slid copies of the overtime policy across the table. He read it. Audrey read it. This seems reasonable, Harvey finally said. Audrey, from a human resources perspective? It is more than reasonable, Audrey said. Frankly, the liability under the Fair Labor Standards Act is substantial if we are demanding off-the-clock work from salaried employees who might be misclassified. Harvey nodded slowly. Here is what I am prepared to offer. We implement this proposal effective immediately. You will be placed on a formal on-call rotation 1 week every 3 weeks. During your on-call weeks, you will receive additional compensation. Outside those weeks, after-hours emergencies will be handled by a backup system we will develop. We will hire a junior systems integration specialist to train under you. We will also adjust your title and salary to senior systems integration lead with a 20% increase retroactive to the beginning of this quarter. It was more than I had expected, actual structural change and recognition. There is one condition, Harvey added. We need your commitment that you will help build this new system, train your junior, and document your processes. I can do that, I said. We shook hands. Bradford said nothing. The next few weeks were busy but better. The junior systems integration specialist they hired was a sharp recent graduate named Valerie Foster, eager to learn, detail-oriented, and asked good questions. Training her gave me a fresh perspective on systems I had been managing on autopilot. The documentation project was satisfying, building a knowledge base that would outlast my tenure. And the best part? I worked 40 hours a week, sometimes 45 if I was in the middle of something interesting. But at 6:30 p.m., I went home to my family. My on-call week every 3 weeks was manageable. I got compensated fairly, and knowing there were 2 other weeks where I was completely off the hook made all the difference. Bradford and I maintained a professional relationship, but something had fundamentally shifted. He did not make casual requests for quick favors anymore, did not assume my availability, and treated my time with respect. 4 months after the incident, Bradford announced he was leaving for another company. Craig Fletcher told me about a revolution in IT, where other specialists were submitting formal proposals based on my template. People should not have to choose between their jobs and their lives. That evening, I left at exactly 6:30 p.m. At home, Nora had started dinner, Oliver was building with blocks, and Chloe was practicing piano. "How was your day?" Nora asked. "Good, productive, normal." After dinner, we took a walk. Chloe held my hand, and Oliver raced ahead on his bike. This was what I had been missing. "I am happy," I told Nora. "I know my worth now. I won't accept less than I deserve." When we got home, I checked my work email one last time. There was a message from Harvey Kensington praising my leadership and strategic thinking, suggesting we discuss my career development path next week. I closed my laptop with a smile. Funny how things changed when you stopped accepting crumbs and demanded the whole meal. That night, after the kids were in bed, Nora and I sat on the back porch with glasses of wine. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Not for a second," I said. "Best decision I ever made." The fireflies blinked in the darkness. My evenings belonged to my family. My expertise was recognized. All because I had done exactly what I was told. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Summit Financial Solutions learned their lesson, and I reclaimed my life.